This was a group of innocents targeted for practicing their faith. Make no mistake, this was a terrorist attack.
Obviously, in a world where people tend to divide themselves rather than unite themselves, this is why our country has to remain a beacon, a landmark of tolerance and openness in this troubled world.
A horrific crime against the Muslim faith in Canada. 6 Muslim men lost their lives as they prayed together at the Islamic Cultural Center in Quebec City. 2 others remain in serious condition. Our reporter Molly Thomas brings us stories from the front lines. The suspect, 27-year-old Alexandra Bissonnette, a student at Laval University, has been charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 5 counts of attempted murder using a restricted firearm. I'm Lorna Dueck, and you're watching Context.
It was with shock and sadness that Canadians heard about a despicable act of terror.
Strong words from our Prime Minister. Security expert David Hyde will address the issues of terrorism shortly with us. Our Sheldon Neal and Molly Thomas on the stories of how did Quebec find itself here. They'll speak with politicians, Muslim leaders, and faith voices. How will the future be shaped for Quebec and Canada on Islamophobia?
Islam, what it means, actually, the definition of the word means peace. There's nothing that we want more than peace.
Coming up, protests in Toronto draw hundreds, and an Iraqi Canadian speaks about her pain as a new immigrant to Canada.
No fear, no hate, Canadians don't discriminate.
Some believe the American travel ban was a backdrop for the Quebec mosque shootings. Molly Thomas takes us to a Canadian protest where hundreds gathered to share their messages of angst and anger over President Trump's travel ban. That's all coming up. But first, Molly Thomas has just returned from Quebec City. Molly, what did you find on the ground?
You know, Lorna, so much heartbreak. There's Quebecers that were coming from all over the city throughout the day. And for me, it was a visceral reminder of Paris, the Paris attacks, because of all the beautiful notes and letters that were all over the ground from people in the community.
And that's over 5,000, I hear.
Oh,
That's
so many, everywhere you looked.
Okay. So what is that neighborhood like?
You know, Lorna, I actually lived in Saint Foy to learn French about 5 years ago, so I know the neighborhood a little bit. It's a beautiful, very peaceful, calm neighborhood. Most people often walk around, they say salut, bonjour, when you walk by. It's beautiful. But this specific part of Saint Foy, it's actually quite diverse, very diverse. So on the west side, you have Arabic shops and restaurants. In the area where the attack actually took place, you have a strong North African community. And then to the east, you have the Université of Laval, of course, which draws a large international community. So unlike, Montreal, which is, super diverse, Quebec City, for the most part, is Caucasian, but this neighborhood, quite diverse. That makes it very, very unique.
Well, let's take a look.
We have 17 children. It's terrible.
17 children lost their father.
Mohammed Libidi's quiet neighborhood is lined with tears. The cards in the snow tell a story no one ever wanted to hear. 6 men gunned down at their local place of worship. Another 3 are still in intensive care. This is Canada's first physical attack on people of faith.
This is a rare case. This is not a general feeling.
The attack at Quebec City's Islamic Center has many questioning the province's recent years of struggle with identity politics. You have to remember that Quebec has an interesting relationship with race and religion. Back in 2013, the Parti Québécois proposed a charter of values that would eliminate all religious symbols from public workspaces. And while that did not go through and there is a new government, you have to wonder who still supports this. The alleged shooter, 27-year-old Alexandre Bissonnette, held radicalized right-wing views. He is described by people that knew him as a racist fanatic, known to support U.S. President Donald Trump, France's National Front leader Marine Le Pen, and to have anti-Islamic views. But contempt can be contagious. Since Sunday's attack, Montreal police say there's been a spike in hate-related incidents.
But we're not different from other societies. We have the same devils in our society.
Young Muslims like Iba say they won't be intimidated.
I don't have any fear, but I'm just still have compassion.
However, the outpouring of community support may be changing the conversation.
We need to let them know who we are and get to know who they are and learn to practice what Christ has taught us, to love our neighbor.
Not only integrate those peoples, but to be in relationship with those peoples.
That relationship has already started online. Quebecers and fellow Canadians pitching in for families of the victims.
In just a few days, Lorna, and over $250,000 already raised just on that side alone.
Wow, wow. Canadian generosity, Molly, coming out so beautifully. But Molly, this is not the first hate crime we've seen on religious property.
No, I mean, there's been quite a few. The mosque that was targeted in this attack, there was a pig head that was left there last Ramadan, so there was already something there. Other hate crimes in that area. In the fall, if you look back in Calgary, police were investigating 2 different hate crimes involving Islamic centers. I mean, one site was vandalized and a Quran was burnt and windows were broken. I mean, this is something that is happening across the country.
I think few of us realize that Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale has extended the deadline for security funding. So there's actually a tax-funded program in Canada where places of faith, cultural centers, mosques, churches, we can apply to ask for security funding up to $50,000 per building. This is not the Canada I expect, that we have to be putting security systems, government funded, around our buildings.
Yeah, I mean, the vice president of the Islamic Center that I spoke with, he said that they had security cameras there, but they obviously need a stronger security presence. You know, it's changing everything about, you know, whether you're at a church, a mosque, a temple, it's going to change. And we're going to talk to another security expert coming up about, you know, what that might mean.
This is far from the freedom of religion that our charter speaks so highly about. Time to get some answers on that. Well, thank you, Molly, and we're going to have much more with you coming up. We're joined now by Global News reporter Raquel Fletcher, who is the Quebec National Assembly correspondent. Raquel, there's been heated debate in the National Assembly in the past few months when it comes to race and religion. What do we need to know?
Well, Lorna, you know, race and religion has been a debate for quite a number of years here in Quebec. But in the last few months, politicians have been debating a new bill called Bill 62, which is essentially it's called the Religious Neutrality Bill, if I translate it into English. And it's supposed to lay out how and what accommodations Quebec can grant in terms of government workers and teachers. There's been a lot of debate here about whether teachers should be allowed to wear the hijab or the chador or the burqa. And there's been a lot of rhetoric around that. There's been a lot of rhetoric about Quebec values and whether or not some of these religious symbols or religious clothing contravenes quote unquote Quebec values.
And do you feel that is part of the climate that leads to radicalization?
Well, there's been a lot of finger pointing in the last few days. The Premier has come out and said that politicians and members of the media need to tone down the rhetoric. And when I say members of the media, I mean everyone, but especially some of the radio shows here in Quebec City that is known as trash radio that have said some particularly offensive Islamophobic things over the last, few years. And obviously politicians have kind of pointed the fingers at each other. Whether or not any of them will take personal responsibility, well, we'll see that next week when they come back and sit and start debating again at the National Assembly.
Thank you, Raquel. That was Raquel Fletcher joining us from Quebec City. Joining me now is McGill Professor Charles Taylor, winner of the Templeton Prize. Dr. Taylor co-chaired Quebec's 2007 hearings on reasonable accommodation of religious and cultural beliefs in Quebec. The Montreal police have seen 14 hate crimes reported since Sunday's attack. What do you sense is going on now over religious identity?
Well, I think across the West, what's going on is that there is also a minority of people who are, perfectly ready to hate whatever. In this case, religion or foreign religions. But in most cases, they feel restrained because it's just not done. It's it's something that's considered terrible. When respected politicians in high positions begin to adopt those attitudes, maybe in a milder form, just restricting people's rights, not necessarily saying throw them out, but then they think, okay, well, if they say that, if Trump says that, the President of the United States thinks that, why should I stop myself?
10 years ago, Dr. Taylor, you disagreed with the Quebec Charter of Values, which was eventually voted down. What made you so opposed?
Well, there's two things. One, I think the policy is terrible because it changes, it reduces the rights of certain categories of people. There's no valid reason to do that. In this case of the Charter in Quebec, for instance, women wearing a hijab or Jewish men wearing a kippah and so on, Sikhs wearing turbans, would be excluded from a whole lot of jobs in the public sector. A very large proportion of Quebec jobs. Now, why reduce their rights? Is there a danger? No. It was really pandering to a feeling in the electorate of identity threat.
Let's talk about the post-Quebec mosque tragedy. What do we need to do now?
Well, the thing is that I already saw in the Charter that this had the effect of unleashing all those attacks, right? And then I've seen it in England with the Brexit debate. I've seen it in France with the Burkini debate, and we see it in the States. And it's sociologically established, right? So we are on a spiral, and we've got to stop the spiral. So the first thing we have to do is come down very hard on people who want to reduce those kinds of debates, because they're putting us in this spiral where terrible things are done to Muslims here. The Islamic State is just drooling and waiting for that because that's their greatest recruiting instrument, right? The recruiting instrument is, these Westerners, they hate you, they despise you, and people like Trump and people like this unfortunate young criminal and so on, are just giving weight to that argument. So we could get into a ding-dong battle.
Dr. Taylor, thank you very much. Well, Molly Thomas was at the protests in Toronto, part of that ding-dong battle. She was there earlier this week where she met one very emotional, understandably emotional, new Canadian.
It's like first thing you come take the land and you destroy everything. And then the next thing is like, okay, you try to make a life and you want to work and you want to live. My cousin lives in the States. She can't renew her paperwork anymore. She has to leave. And it's just disturbing because you don't know if they want to anymore. Like, it's like one thing, you want the petrol, you want to take the land, you want to destroy us, okay, that's fine, but let us live. This is Hitler time coming back. Before there was the Jews, now it's the Muslim. Donald Trump brought the racism, brought the hate out of everyone's heart. He's bringing it out to the streets, and he's making people to feel that they have the power to kill someone who is praying. What happened in Quebecois yesterday not just shattered my heart into pieces, made me speechless. I slept in tears yesterday listening to the Quran because I just think that this is going to be my end too.
Wow, Molly. Understandably very emotional and new Canadian.
I learned that Nadia, originally from Iraq, when the U.S. invaded their family, actually she lost her sister in that war. Family left, they went to Jordan, of course, as they weren't nationals, so they couldn't get land.
They would have been a very young girl.
Yes, exactly.
When her sister was killed in the war.
That's right. So they fled to Jordan. You can't get land if you're not nationals. They eventually immigrated to Canada. Their extended family went to the U.S. And you can imagine the frustration when you finally make it to these lands of freedom, and now you can't even see your family.
Okay, you also caught up with another, an influential Muslim Canadian teaching in Toronto.
I had the chance to sit down with Professor Walid Saleh. He's the Director of Islamic Studies at the University of Toronto. And you know, Lorna, he doesn't actually do a lot of interviews, but when this happened, when this mosque shooting happened, he decided to speak out. Take a look.
So Walid, we saw what happened in Quebec. Tell me what went through your mind when you first heard about the mosque shooting.
Something like this was bound to happen, which is really where the tragedy lies. In a sense, there's such mounting demonizing of Muslims that, you know, it's a pig head here, a broken window there, a grabbing of a head cover of a woman in a supermarket, a shouting match in the bus, etc. And then this happens, and you have this dreaded feeling that, oh my God, like it did happen.
Do you think we can blame the U.S.? I mean, the rhetoric that's coming from down south on this?
I don't think demonizing Americans is a way to understand anything. This is a Canadian issue, but Canada is part of a global setting. But I think we have enough problems to generate this setting. I mean, previous government made targeting Muslim part of its rhetorical strategy. I mean, you know, last elections, you have the niqab as an essential element of the debate, which is, it's first of all an insignificant issue. Second of all, it's of no strategic value to the country. Yeah, the whole country was gripped with whether the niqab is legal or not. And then you ask, are Muslims like being demonized? We have allowed the rhetoric about Muslims to degenerate to such a level that they are dehumanized.
How should the Muslim community respond after something like this? What can they do? What should they do?
Out of respect to the families, I don't think we can ask of the Muslim community anything. We should just respect their sorrow. They're decent, law-abiding citizens, and the harangue that they are being subjected to is just like has become terrifying, and this is what's going to happen. So I have this question for you. Apparently, this mosque have been. This is the 9th hate incident that they report.
As a Muslim living here, I mean, are you scared? Are you scared to go outdoors? Are you scared to walk around in Canada here?
I'm not, but then I'm in a great environment. I mean, you know, I do worry about other Muslims, especially it's layers of minorities, right? If you're a Muslim, then if you don't look white, if you're have visible signs of being a Muslim, whether it's a beard or a headscarf, and then it's a situation rife for misunderstanding, right?
That is the director of the Islamic Studies at the University of Toronto. If you can feel the emotion and passion from an expert like that, imagine how this is rippling out across our Muslim community. Sheldon, we're hearing a lot about this being a social media phenomenon as well. What are we hearing on our social media?
Thank you so much, Lorna. Yes, that's a story our viewers will want to stay tuned for. And the online and social media, as you mentioned, Lorna, has been a buzz about this. The popular hashtag Quebec shooting, has been trending. And with that, I want to bring up a couple things here. Photos, I'll make that large so you can see on your screen, of the gunman, Alexandre Bissonnette, has just been all over social media with the hashtag, of course, Quebec shooting. Alongside of that, people have been sharing pictures of the victims. This one you're seeing on your screen now. These are the 6 victims of the terror attack on hashtag Quebec Mosque. Share their faces and memory instead of the killers. It's been quite, people have been very strong about that. I want to turn to, jump ahead to some that was on your personal Facebook page, Lorna. People had a lot to say. You posted something that said, with a heavy heart, we've lowered the flag at the Crossroads Center today in prayer and solidarity over the ache and loss of Muslim Canadians for the tragedy in Quebec. People responded with some strong views here. How often do you lower the flag when terrorists kill and maim people who are Jewish? Another one that came online, and I want to enlarge that so you can see it at home. Let's lower the flag for Christianity being slaughtered by ISIS. That needs attention too. There's so much more to share. I'm almost out of time, but I want to continue to engage us online on Twitter at Context TV. If you're on Facebook engaging, Context with Lorna Dueck, a whole lot more to get to in the program. We'll talk about that. That's what's happening online and on social media.
Coming up, we speak with security expert David Hyde about the far-reaching implications surrounding security and terrorism.
Dreams do come true. PureFlix Canada is now available on a device near you. With over 3,500 faith and family titles, there is something for everyone. Start your free 1-month trial today at pureflix.com.
Well, and joining us now in studio is David Hyde, a security expert from David Hyde and Associates. David, was the Prime Minister too quick to call this a terrorist attack? Is he accurate?
Well, there's a rush to label, both politically and in the media, unfortunately, in these kind of very tragic incidents. In this case, it looks like he was a bit quick to label it. It's leaning more towards it likely being, the more we find out now about this, the ideology of the shooter, it's more likely that it will fit that definition, but we're not quite there yet, in my view.
For terrorism charges to stick, there has to be an ideological motivation behind
That's correct.
it.
Yes.
And be garnered against a state as well, not?
With violence as the means that's used, that's correct. Yeah, that's the legal definition. There's also an academic definition, of course. Right now, the charges for this man are not under the Terrorism Act. There's actual charges for him. That may change as they unlock his motivation. But broadly, terrorism is, violence used to achieve an ideological or political means, and this would start to fit that narrative.
In the wake of this, Canada's Public Safety Minister has extended the deadline for infrastructure security granting.
Yes.
So that's organizations that are faith-based organizations can apply for a grant to have security cameras around your temple, around your mosque, around your church. Is it really that necessary in Canada? You're a private security firm expert. Do we, as religious places, need to start putting up the cameras?
Well, unfortunately, we have seen some tragic incidents at houses of worship, if we want to call them that broadly, in many countries, obviously here in the States. So I think there's an obligation on people that operate these houses of worship to be aware of security. We don't necessarily have to lock them down, but there may be some steps. Availing of some funds from the government would be, in my view, a smart move to take. But let's not overreact. Let's not become a jail. We need to be opening, of course, in these areas, but we don't want to ignore security. It really is a fine balance.
All right, David Hyde, security expert, thank you very much.
PureFlix.com is now available in Canada. Sign up today for your free 1-month trial and begin streaming over 3,500 titles.
It's from independent films to movies and short series.
Kids shows. Sign up for a free month. Give it a good try.
Watch your favorite content anywhere, anytime, like PureFlix original hit series Encounter. Enjoy the latest and best in faith and family entertainment. Available to you at the click of a button. Visit PureFlix.com and sign up for your free trial today. Brought to you by Crossroads.
Next week on Context, we tackle football and hockey head injuries. Are we risking too much on the field? We take a look at that next week. We are covering the Quebec Mosque in mourning, and we're joined again by our faith panel, Faria and Kamran, and Wendell Gibbs, who's pastor at First Baptist in downtown Toronto, now joins the discussion. Pastor Gibbs, you felt you needed to write, on behalf of the Christian faith community, a letter to the Muslim faith community. Why?
Absolutely. I think most people would have passion, as we're seeing, in whether it's retaliation, whether it's the crimes committed. I think the model that Christ gives to us is to add the word compassion. And what we don't see across the streams is compassion for humanity, compassion for the dignity of life. So I felt we need to step up and to at least acknowledge that we feel the pain, we share the sorrow, because we are in danger as well as a human race. So the judgments and the hate that we bring in upon each other is not the compassion that is displayed in our Gospels. And from what I can gather in our Muslim brothers and sisters, they share the same sentiments as well. So I felt there was a need to at least acknowledge that we are in a community together, and we feel the pain and sorrow, and we bemoan with you as well.
Okay, Faria, you talked about the sense that the community came around. You got letters from your alma mater, and in your practice as a doctor. How do you feel about, you are still a minority in Canada. How do you feel about this conversation when you hear a Christian saying that?
I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's these conversations, I think, once they get started, it starts with a letter or a phone call or an email. But I think what we need to do is take it to the next level where we actually spend time with each other. Let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
Let's get to know each other. You know, it's wonderful that we are strong within our communities, but between our communities, that's what we need to see happen. So, you know, get to know your neighbor, get to know your teachers, get to know your students, get to know the people in your community beyond the services that they offer you. Get to know who they are. I think that once we develop this comfort level, there's a comfort in knowing our similarities, but there's a beauty in recognizing our differences. And I think that there is hopefully a silver lining in all of this, where we actually do come together and we can work together strategically and empower each other to make those changes at a policy level, at an education level, at a government level. And hopefully that's something we're working towards together, and this is how it starts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fareed, I think that we have never seen a conversation that's quite like this, that's impacting young people, because they're all part of it now. And you are in a mentoring group with young Canadians who are of Muslim faith. What do you think their biggest takeaway is going to be from a conversation like this around the mosque?
You know what's happening with young people? I mean, I got calls, I got emails from many of these young people who said, how could this happen? I thought in Canada this doesn't happen. And we had these conversations about how what we're going to do as young people, we're going to continue to give back to our communities. We're going to strengthen our communities. We're going to get to know our neighbors. We're going to work harder to let everybody know who the Muslim community is and what we're going to do as servants to our community.
All right. Okay, well, this has been very good. Wendell Gibbs, Faria, and Kamran, thank you so much for being on our faith panel. Well, because Quebec City's crime victims were attacked over their religious identity as Muslims, let's close by surfacing the most common question I'm asked about religious identity in Canada. And that would be a question from probably a person about my age who has angst, and they are a questioning Christian who asks this: why do I feel like a minority? Where are my rights as a white, middle-aged Canadian? Well, I'll try to answer that from my own faith as a Christian. So, what if we feel like a minority? Big deal. If our identity is faith in Jesus, our job is to imitate Christ, to love both neighbors and enemies. You know, there's 35 new police have been hired now to monitor hate crimes in Quebec since Sunday's attack. How about we monitor ourselves? Let the government make the tough calls about immigration, law enforcement, and foreign policy. We should pray for those in power so that we can live in peace. But while we are in this war against racism, bigotry, misogyny, sexism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and white supremacy, our words will be as important as our actions. A Christ follower is called to love, to shun the belief that the other is dangerous, and to reject the belief that we need to insulate ourselves. My rights are to model the love of Jesus. Join us on our website for more on all of that.